I guess we failed to mention the name of the ship that we came over on was the General Weigel, and it was a regular troop ship, and other than the fact that it was overloaded, but we made it to Japan anyway. And so then we offloaded there in Japan and got on a smaller ship to Busan, South Korea. And so there we went to a reception center where they send you to your different units. So that's when we got the train ride, where we weren't allowed to have no lights or no smoking. And we had to get these rifles that they give us that were all full of cosmoline, had to get them cleaned up so they could possibly shoot. And then they gave us some old World War I rations that were kind of wormy. Nobody knew it till the next day. But anyway, then we were heading up to our units. And I was sent to Headquarters Company, 1st Cavalry. And I was there probably a week. And they sent me right to the 70th Tank Battalion. And I spent the rest of my time in Korea with the Tank Battalion. The idea there, my job was, well, it was their job to shoot the enemy, and it was my job to keep these guys alive. The biggest problem is when we got up north, and the weather got colder, and we didn't have the equipment. We didn't have no winter clothes, and we didn't hardly have no food. We didn't have no fresh food for 6 months. And so we did go fishing. We captured a bunch of landmines and stuff and went out in the river and got some fish. And then we shot a couple of water buffaloes and we got all the chickens. First we got the eggs, and then we got the chickens. But anyway, we didn't have any clocks because we just worked from daylight till dark. And you can imagine if you're in the winter, it's further north than here. Everything you touch is steel, and everything is cold, So a lot of times you had to climb down in the engine compartment to change the engine, and these engines held 5 gallons of oil. So you climb down in there, you're all covered with oil, and it's cold, So again, you're not allowed to have a fire, and you didn't have no tents. We had some little pup tents, and so most of the time we find an old bombed out building or the back of a truck to sleep in. The further north you get, the more territory you got to cover. So our forces were spread out, and so the Chinese decided that they wanted to come into the war, and we were up on the Chinese border, on the Yalu River, and so they come charging across, and the best that I could do, part of my job was to move tanks from one place to another, and to go to port and pick up new ones. And so in this case here, I got one tank that was in pretty good running shape, and before we could take it up to the outfit that was on the line, then the Chinese come. So I took the best tank, and to make sure it didn't get captured, and then we had some infantry that wanted to get out of there too, so we loaded the back end up with infantry and headed down the road. And whatever gets in the road, you got to knock out of the way, you know. And so a few old houses got knocked over and a few trucks got run over. But anyway, we pulled back far enough where we could kind of regroup again. And of course, the Marines and them got, we were supposed to be home for Christmas. That was the whole deal. And so we didn't get home for Christmas because they took these other guys, had to fight their way out to the coast, and they took them out by boat. And so we pulled back far enough where we could kind of regroup, and then it was just kind of a seesaw deal the rest of the time we were there. And I'm sure that I was glad, and the other people were, that I had made a decision to go to school and to learn how to keep these things going so that these guys could count on their equipment when they got up in front, you know. And when it didn't run right, they brought it back and they said, hey, let's get this baby going. We need it, see. We didn't have any spares, you know. So that was my job. The worst thing that I went through was the fact that we didn't have the clothing and the food and the ammunition. They had some kind of a dock problem over in California, and we couldn't get ammunition, you know. So here you got this great big tank with 7 rounds of ammunition. That's all you could have, you know. So anyway, when we finally got pulled back a little further and kind of got them Chinese stopped, I never thought too much about airplanes until then, and we got a sunny day and they sent every airplane they had in Japan over there. And so that kind of halted them for a while. All the rest of the time we were there was just it kind of slowed down, and then they started going up and back and up and back, and then it was time. I was given a choice of taking over the job crew chief or going home. So I took to going home. So if I was going to stay in, I certainly would have took the promotion then. See. So, and because again, kind of this schooling, when I went there, I was a private, and I suppose six months I was a sergeant, see. And so the only thing that goes with that is a lot of responsibility, you know? So these things have to be fixed, and they got to be fixed right. And besides, you're responsible for your crew. So that's about the main part of it. Well, the whole country is just a mountain and a rice paddy and a mountain and a rice paddy. And then, of course, the roads go along the edge of the mountains. And so it was tough for transportation. In fact, when the Japanese occupied it, they built the bridges and the roads. And then before we left, we blew them all up. So they were back where they started from, you know.
You had mentioned about using landmines for fish, but did you guys, you said there was rice paddies, did you guys eat much rice at all?
Well, the only time when we had any rice to speak of is we got cut off. You know, we were surrounded. and we didn't have no supply lines. See, we couldn't get no ammunition or no food, so we found an old warehouse that was full of rice. So for a week, we just had a gob of rice every day, you know, and you get where you really don't care about it anymore. So, but I came home, and the woman that was my wife later, she said, "Would you like for me to make you some rice pudding?" And I said, "I'm going to pass on that one."
When the Chinese invaded, was it the Chosin Reservoir?
Right, same deal.
Were you near Chosin when that happened?
No, that was the Marines in the 7th Division, and see, I was with the 1st Cavalry, and so we were back far enough where we didn't get captured or cut off, you know. So they surrounded them, see, and so they pushed them. And you can tell you how cold it was. They drove the trucks on the reservoir, you know, the water, see. And so they drove the trucks on there, and they fought their way to the ocean where the ships picked them up, you know. Yeah. And that was at Christmas time.
I don't think there could have been any place worse on earth than being over there on Christmas.
Yeah.
Chosin.
I probably got to write maybe once a month because, first of all, you got to get a hold of some paper, you know, and some pencils. And and of course, there's not too much you want to write about anyway. But anyway, this lady that I had met before I went overseas, she wrote me a letter every day, and when the mailman come, why, he had maybe 3 or 4 letters for some other guys, and the whole rest of the bag was for me, see? So some people kind of envied you there, you know what I mean? But what few letters I did send home, she kept them all. And in fact, I just gave them to my daughter here a few months ago. And mail was important, you know. And one time she'd sent a picture, and how it got there without being broke up, I have no idea. So of course my buddies, they said, "Hey, write her a letter and tell her we like the picture, but please send cookies instead." So next time. So anyhow.
Did you ever get cookies?
Well, I'm sure we did. I got a couple of care packages, and it seemed to me that I brought that picture home. I think that's the one I had hanging on the wall. Well, the thing is, we thought the war was over, you know, because, but like I said before, you know, Korea goes up like this. So the further up you get, the more scattered out you are. You got the same amount of men, but you got 2 or 3 times the territory to cover. So when the Chinese came, we thought, hey, we're on the Yalu River, we're done. The war is over, see? And then here they come, you know. And as far as fighters, hey, they were in mass, you know, thousands of them. And life does not have the same meaning that it does to us, see? The first guy has got a rifle, and maybe the second guy has got a club, and we wait for the first guy to get shot so they can get his gun, you know. And but the numbers were just overwhelming, you know. And they had good clothes, and you know, and they had artillery that we would never dreamed of, you know. They had truckloads of ammunition, see. And so, but our generals or whoever was in charge, they thought this thing was over with, so they didn't send no more, you know. They said, why send all that stuff when we don't need it, you know? And so that just prolonged the thing a little more, you know.
Did Russia, were they involved at all, whether it was providing ammo or air support or the artillery? How?
Yeah, they were their prime providers. They had, and they also used it for a testing ground, see, for like their MiG fighters and their tanks. I don't know, we burned up, I would say the Air Force burned up dozens and dozens of tanks. And our Air Force shot down all their MiG-15s or MiG-5s, whatever they were. But it was just because that they were really a high-class fighter plane, you know. And so as the war went on, ours improved. In fact, got a little scare over that one. You know, we were out in the field with a crew trying to get a tank repaired, and we saw these planes coming over, and I said, hey, we got to get out of here. They had them swept wings, the MiGs did, and our F-80s had straight wings. I said, them is Russian planes, so we better get out of here. So here we're out in the wide open spaces, you know. So we go and we get in a big ditch over there, and they went right past, never even looked at us, you know. So I said, man, this is unreal, you know. Here we're sitting ducks, you know. So we get back, and it was a couple days later, they had a bulletin come out, and they said they had just introduced a new F-86, I think it was, and they were swept wings. So actually it was the first ones that we got. They didn't tell anybody about it until afterward, you know. So just one of those. You were really worried about it at the time, but glad it was over afterward, you know. So, and their tanks were inferior. They were old World War II jobs that just didn't have what ours did, you know. So between our armor and Air Force, just wiped out theirs, you know. But they did supply them with all kinds of artillery and ammunition, you know. You could sit there and watch them up on the mountain, and they weren't equipped, they didn't know how to use them yet, see. So they'd put a shell in and fire it, and then they'd look in the book, see, and see what they done, you know, or what they didn't do. So we let them shoot a couple times, you know, and then put them out of their misery, see. Yeah.
Was there ever a time where shell fire was close to you, or they had you guys located all sitting tanks or moving stuff?
Well, it's always close to you because, you know, but the closest we really got to artillery fire, they had some of these long toms that they use for long range firing. And they pull them in and they shoot a mission and then they move, see, so they don't get blowed out. Well, we were camped in a riverbed and I just had a blanket over me. And sometime during the night they pulled in, I never heard them. And all of a sudden the sky turned purple and blue, and so they were firing right over our heads, see, you know. So we didn't know what was going on, you know what I mean? So we just stayed dug in the sand a little deeper, you know what I mean? That when they'd fire, that blanket just raise up, see, you know? So no wonder I don't hear everything now that I used to, you know? But anyway, they got done firing, and by the time everybody figured out what was going on, well, they were pulling out, you know? But that's the closest I want to get to them. There's always a chance of getting shot at, you know, but You can't be working on a tank and ducking bullets at the same time. You can't do it, you know. So, but any time that you're in a place like this, you got some close calls. You know, there's no question about it. In fact, some of it was my own doing. You know, when I went to the port, they'd blown a bunch of bridges up. And I went to the port to pick up a new tank and a new artillery piece. So coming back, it was getting dark, and we're in a hurry to get back to our unit, because you don't want lights, you know. You will get picked off, you know. So they had temporary bridges and also where you could go around them. So I didn't see the turnoff. So I went right up on the bridge, and when I got up on the bridge, it said 10-ton limit. See? So I just put her to the floor, and we made her across, you know. Yeah, but it could have been a bad deal right there, you know.